It's the most wonderful form of jihad. My last truck was so tiny, this one's big and shiny in every regard. It's the most wonderful form of jihad. It's the happy religion of peace. With a Pole who is dying, I'll soon be supplying a tribute to Nice. It's the happy religion of peace. There's a book I'm obeying that advocates slaying, so all disbelievers beware. There'll be tinsel all tangled and bodies all mangled and blood splattered everywhere. This has nothing to do with Islam. He is not terrorizing, he's just socializing. This lovely young man has got nothing to do with Islam.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is SJJMAS. Sorry, I'm choking on my mince pie. I'm not short-tongued much. This is SJJMAS number 14 with the leader of the dissident right herself, Claire Khaw. Welcome back, Claire. How are you? This is your official appearance.
Yes, as thought leader of the dissident right, thank you for this unprecedented welcome. I hope I will be worthy of the task ahead for me in thinking our way out of the paper bag that is the crazy people, the stupid, corrupt people who are currently our ruling classes. I see that the intro might be a few years old because I think at the end of it was Angela Merkel.
Yes.
And she was a few years ago.
It was a throwback, I think, to 2016. I remember that video, that one first came out. So I'm pulling out all the stops, all the old classics here. But I knew you'd like that. Did you enjoy it?
Yes, I did. I hadn't actually seen it before, but I guess these Christmas surprises keep happening in our in the global hegemon that is the West, because I guess the victims of American imperialism might wish to object to it in some little way, and that's their way of showing their objection. But yes, I think so much of nationalism is about group identity, and I think we're all a bit confused about who we are under. And I just want to say that I regard myself as a product of the British Empire, and this must mean I'm also part of the Anglo-American Empire, as are you, and even all these Irish people and these Europeans who probably don't regard themselves as Anglo-American, such as Serbs and French people and that kind of thing. Or even Germans. I mean, are Germans Saxon? Except that they're not Anglo-Saxon.
What?
Germans are Saxons.
Are they?
Yeah.
Well, look, before we get into all that, we don't have super long, by the way, tonight, everybody, because Claire's a prior engagement. But before we get into all that, this is a monetized stream, but just because, like, the other had someone on yesterday throwing shade, I specifically don't want anybody to send me money this year. Don't send any money to the show, please. I want you all to invest in yourselves. That's the message of SJJMAS this year. That's the good news that I'm bringing to you all. If you get the urge to throw money at a content creator, please, please change your mind and invest in yourselves and your children. Okay. And what else did I want to say at the start? Something else, but I've forgotten. Woes is going live, guys. That was it. That's the reminder. What a much better art project we've got running over here again this year. It's absolutely shocking over on Millennial, the state of the art. We were just picking a background for the show today before we went live, weren't we, Claire? And already we're like, this is like grade, I would say, A minus compared to like the D minus levels over on Millennial.
Well, it isn't looking very arty, and it's not that hard to, choose a nice background, right?
It's not.
With StreamYard.
It's not. It's not hard at all, is it? So there's no excuses. Anyway, you were saying this is Claire's once a year, now annual chance to turn me into a Muslim. So, I mean, give it your best shot. Come on.
Well, the thing is, I'm not even Muslim. I'm not even asking anyone to convert to Islam, and it drives me to despair that people deliberately misunderstand my intentions. So basically, I'm saying the problem is a mechanical one, and an example of a mechanical problem is you want to fill up your bath, but you haven't got a bath plug. So you will waste a lot of hot water if you run your bath without a bath plug. So get yourself a bath plug. And this is the equivalent of what I am proposing, because I'm saying that if you keep trusting your corrupt and incompetent ruling classes to make up the rules as they go along, they will. Of course they will. And they will be making laws to suit themselves and not you, because they are in control of the media, of the legislature, i.e. Parliament, where changes of the laws come from, and they will be, raising taxes and taking away your rights, and you have no means of stopping them. I'm sorry, but you don't if you are a liberal and want to carry on with liberal democracy. So.
I think I am a liberal. I think I do want to carry on this liberal democracy. I think I want this more than ever, actually.
You want to be mainstream. This is what you want. Everybody wants to be mainstream, and you need to cling on to this part of being mainstream.
No, that's not true. If I wanted that, then I'd give it a go. But I've completely given up, and I don't mean this in like a doomer fashion. I've completely given up on like trying to get there as a YouTube creator, for the better, by the way, for the better, by deciding I don't care like about this little project, has allowed me to shake off any like silly desires I might have had for about 10 minutes of joining the e-celebrity, the micro e-celebrity ranks. So I've shooken all that off. Don't care about it anymore. And by not caring, then I have no interest. I'm not trying to mainstream myself at all. I don't know what you mean. I'm not doing a Richard Spencer and just like joining the other team or something to get back into the airs and graces of society.
Richard Spencer is desperate to be mainstream. That's why he's promoting neoconservatism and just trying to be as mainstream as he dares. I mean, isn't that what he's trying to do? That's why nobody trusts him, because he hasn't got any principles, and he's whatever position he states today, he's liable to change it tomorrow.
Your mic was fading in and out then, but I heard what you're saying. Look, I disagree about Richard, actually. I think he's somebody who refuses to be seen as stale and refuses to be seen as pushing something that has gained the cringe factor. So he got out the moment it stopped being cool. And he was right to do that, really. Absolutely, 100%. He got out, he said, these wignats are fucking cringe. And, yeah, I don't want to be a part of it anymore. He, like, looked around, read the room, and was like, this isn't cool. It felt cool for about 5 minutes. It felt like you're going to change things. But then you look around and you realise you had like all the Matt Heimbachs and people wearing Stahl helms or whatever they're called on their heads, and Zeke Hyland in the streets and stuff. And like, what am I actually a part of? And sometimes it takes somebody to realise this is not the way forward, and that's what he did.
But I remember, well, just recently, one of my white nationalist contacts who said he never would have thought it, but anti-Semitism seems to have gone mainstream because of Nick Fuentes.
No, it's because Israel started bombing babies. I mean, it's not, it's quite obvious, the pipeline. The world doesn't like to see dead babies, and when they're turning up on the TV like every day for 2 years, then
So, and they scroll past it.
they've got a PR problem, obviously created by themselves. But it's not the kind of, in quotes, anti-Semitism that was going around before, like the cerebral, intellectual version of the JQ. It's a different one. It's a leftist version. It's actually wrapped up with anti-colonialism. And like Duvid was saying the other day, it's lose-lose for you, Goy. Where the people who hate us, they really just like wrap it up in hating you anyway. And there's some truth to that.
What do you think Duvid was saying? Can you repeat it again? I didn't quite catch that. What do you think Duvid was saying? If you could translate it for all of us.
He's saying that the rise in quotes, anti-Semitism across the world, and particularly in America, in response to Israel's actions, what we see here in the UK, and that the calls for global intifada, in the minds of the people who are doing it, they see Westerners and white people as one and the same thing as the Israelis who are bombing the babies. So they see us wrapped up in the same cause. They blame us as colonialists of like the global south, just like they blame the Israelis, and we're one and the same thing.
Okay, you're saying we're going to be tarred with the same brush. White
Yes.
people will be considered to be Christian and Zionist and neocons and all the bad things.
Yes.
And do you have a position to defend about it? I mean, do you think, oh, I may be white, but I don't agree with this or that or whatever? Because I mean, I noticed with some Jews, particularly with regard to Duvid, he's calling himself a non-Zionist. In a way that
Yes.
I notice some men calling themselves, instead of anti-feminists, they call themselves a non-feminists. To give the appearance of a neutral position, but being too afraid to say that they're not in favour of the thing or are even against it.
Well, I'm not sure what your question is, and I find it a very tricky subject. Go on then, rephrase
Well,
your
I don't
question
mind
for me.
trying to explain it properly with you here.
Go on then, this is your stream.
It
Yep,
helps.
go on.
Yeah. So Zionism is, obviously a very big idea, and I've been trying to explain to Muslims. It's like, look, because of chapter 17, verse 104 of the Quran, it would appear that Allah is Zionist, and their heads explode. And I'm saying, what does Zionism mean? It means that Jews should deserve a homeland. And it's like, actually, is it that controversial? If you ask any people, that, if you ask a Chinese person, a Japanese person, an Indian, a Pakistani, a Briton, a Frenchman, do you deserve a homeland? Of course the answer is going to be yes. And you can ask people who don't currently have a homeland, such as a Kurd or a Yazidi, of course, all the more they're going to say, yes, of course we deserve a homeland. And of all the people in the world, you expect Jews to say, oh, no, we don't deserve a homeland, even with the unwavering support of the world's number one superpower. No, we Jews, of all people in the world, we don't deserve a homeland. Isn't that a bit optimistic of these Muslims to expect Jews to say that? And one of the things that I cannot, get Muslims to respond to is like, does chapter 17, 104, does it mean that Allah is Zionist or not? Can you please explain? And Khaled, he's done two videos on the subject, and I can't understand his answer. I literally cannot understand what he's saying. So is it yes or no? I don't know. I think that their head literally explodes, and then they just instantly forget what I said to them. So, I don't know.
Obviously, I don't believe in Allah, and I don't think so. None of this concerns me. What the Muslims are, well, I don't know what the Muslims think. Look, it's very tricky.
Most of them don't know what they think.
Yeah, they
Most
don't.
people do
They
not
haven't
know
got a
what they
clue.
think. And it drives
True,
me
they haven't got a
crazy.
clue. Yeah. Look, it's a very tricky topic, is this bloody Israel thing. But I did see this on Twitter the other day, and I'm just pulling it up here, where somebody pointed out that here, Albert Einstein, back in 1948, is it? Saw a disaster coming to his Jewish community from colonizing Palestine and blamed both the British and the terrorist Israeli leaders at the time. And so here we have, let's pull it up here, Albert Einstein in 1948 writing, "Dear Sir, when a real and final catastrophe should befall us in Palestine, the first responsible for it would be the British, and the second responsible for it, the terrorist organizations built up from our own ranks. I am not willing to see anybody associated with those misled and criminal people." So Einstein, from my understanding, was a philosophical Zionist, was a Zionist in principle, but did not like how the state of Israel was brought about by its very terroristic origins. But still, the British get the blame here, even from Einstein.
Yes, because you were the previous hegemon. Before American became the global policeman, the British were the global policeman. And they had their eye on Israel since Victorian times. Of course, they wanted, you know the imperial hymn, Jerusalem. Maybe
But
you'd
it
like to read its words.
Yeah, but am I wrong in thinking it wasn't our fault? The Jews in Israel at the time did this by themselves. They literally committed the terrorism against us to create this state. So it's not really our fault. Anyway, we were all trying to do the right thing at the right time in the aftermath of the Second World War, and it was an absolute mess and a basket case.
Well, I mean, if you want to think in terms of geopolitics, Israel has, is, well, it's basically the crossroads between Europe and Asia and Africa. So, that gives it, even without its association with God and Jews and things like that. If you want to control international shipping, of course you would want to have a slice of Israel because it faces the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea, and it's close to the Suez Canal, and also it's the most prestigious colony you could hope to have if you're Christian or Muslim. So, with all these ideas, in the mind of the imperialist, it's a bigger status symbol you could hope to have as global hegemon. And that's also where the oil is. And
Right. Well,
and the other
right.
thing is, if you appreciate the contribution of the military-industrial complex, you will find that Israel is a great testing ground for your latest weaponry, the Iron Dome, how to kill people with precision or lots of them with imprecision. There are all kinds of ways to try out your latest weaponry on people in Gaza and your defense, your air defense systems protecting the people of Israel. It's actually very valuable if your business is war, imperialism, and the latest weaponry.
I'm not sure I
And,
buy
and, and
that.
okay, and I'm saying Jews are. They have, without their knowledge, become the mascot of the American empire. So, they basically take the blame for US foreign policy. And they're too dumb to even know what has happened. They think that, because they live in Israel, they're more holy and whatever. But it's just, a brand to sell the snake oil of American imperialism. And I would say a lot of them don't know what the hell they're doing, and maybe they don't even want to fight anymore because they can't see the point. And decades ago, I think after World War II, I mean, a lot of Jews were saying to each other, no, we don't want no Jewish homeland. We know that the moment they give us a homeland, they'll tell us to fuck off and go and live there. And we don't want to go and live there. We're happy in America and Europe. We don't want to go and live in the malarial swamps of Israel. I know they've been drained and everything, but at the time they thought, it was a poison chalice and they didn't want anything to do with it. And those Jews who didn't want a homeland were called names such as self-hating Jews who dared to refuse this wonderful gift of Israel. But we know after, the last half century, a lot of, Jews in America joined the American armed forces and, fought for American interests. And a lot of them now are, I don't think that they quite know what they're there for. I mean, even now they think, is there anywhere to run? Why would people run to Israel, which is a war zone, basically, in danger of being bombed by Iran anytime? So, I'm afraid no one anywhere has anywhere to run because, the American hegemon will come and get you, even if you live in Venezuela or Nigeria or, well, anywhere in the world, really, because America has, its naval and military bases all over the world. So this is what I think we should all understand. We should understand our position,
How does this
our
help us?
status.
How does this help us?
We need to know who we are in order to decide who our friends are, don't we? And I'm saying, with regard to white people, obviously Americans are top tier white people. The Europeans are second tier white people. And I'm
Well, I
afraid
wouldn't
the
say
people
that.
in the colonies are third tier white people, the people in Australia, Canada, New Zealand. And that's why they've been over promoted to do a lot of jobs, like that David Betts. Have you heard of David Betts?
No, I haven't.
Well,
You
he's
you
the
just seem
one.
to be you just seem to be infected with like this hatred of the American Empire, which is fine because you know, you originate from the global south. You're infected with these
No, no, I'm
ideas.
No, I don't hate Americans, but I'm just telling you what it's doing
Do
to
you hate the American
to
Empire?
Europeans and to Americans
Hate it.
with whom I'm more in contact with than Europeans, whom I regard as second-tier white people.
What is America's big crime to you? What is so wrong with yes, it's not going to be perfect. Such a thing as literally like the last 100 years on Earth in post World War II, what a mess that was. It's not going to play out perfectly, but somebody has to keep order in the world. Somebody has to be the world hegemon. Otherwise, you just the world succumbs into constant
Um,
warfare. You've got a
Excuse me,
call.
I have to mute myself.
Okay, Claire's got a call. It's the Kremlin calling to say you're not doing very well. Please push your Duganism much harder. But my point generally is, okay, call me a neocon if people want to do so, but I look at this now from a much more step back perspective where I say, look at the last 100 years. Yes, it's messy, but at the end of the day, is it not the better timeline than ending up with like China running the world or with all these basket case countries in the Middle East just throwing missiles at each other constantly? Iran invading Iraq, Iraq invading Iran, all this nonsense. Somebody has to go around and like kick these places into touch, and this might even involve interventionism, God forbid.
Liberal
Where
interventionism.
no,
It's been done.
yes,
Iraq, Afghanistan,
yes, soft
Libya.
intervention. I even think I heard. Oh, I forgot who it was. Anyway, Henry Kissinger, I think it was. God forbid, saying I might be wrong on the quote, but somebody like this was basically quoted as saying, it's much more benign. They might not like it, but it's much more benign than literal like millions dead on each side of a war to go in with our soft power and our financial system and to like bring these countries to, here's another bad word that you all spoke out at, to democracy, to a state of like into the global economy, into democracy, where they're not fighting anymore and they're not like becoming terrorist states. This is the better alternative, and you might not like it, but the other version of the world that we could have is constant warfare, like we used to have prior to World War II, basically.
Well, we already have constant warfare. You just don't you don't notice it because you don't care about all these places that America bombs. You're not particularly interested in geopolitics, but you like America. I know lots of white working class people. They want to be Americans because they like the big houses and big cars, and they probably aspire to be American more than they want to be middle class and British. And I understand that. But the point is that even Americans are not happy with their own foreign policy. That's why they're objecting to Israel. They can't understand why they're being, well, if they're veterans, why they've been sent to go and die in exotic places they would never dream of visiting. And, unfortunately, if you die in an unpopular war, nobody's going to call you a hero. They'll just think you're stupid. If you get hurt in the Vietnam War or lost a limb or an eye in Afghanistan or Iraq, that's why Trump always made a point of showing that he cared about the vets. It's
So
very hard to explain to ordinary people who don't care about geopolitics and don't understand it. And it's just
so
easy to blame the Jews, right? Because neoconservatism is about Israel fundamentally.
so I appreciate that America has a specific problem. Should be careful saying problem. America has a specific issue with, how should I phrase this? I understand that America has a specific issue with its tangled upness with Israel and with like Zionists in government and Israeli influence in its government, and that is a legitimate concern for people. And they're like, they look at it and they look at like what happened with Iraq and post 9/11, and they say, well, it was all, we were fighting Israel's wars. I understand this perspective, and to some extent they might be right. But I also understand that at the same time, I can actually understand the impetus of Israel at the time to exploit its own interests and encourage the America along in a path that served its own interests. So I kind of understand that perspective too. But the question comes, what would have been the better out? Would it be better today to have, God forbid, like Saddam Hussein still in power and etc.? Would this be the better outcome?
Anyone.
He invaded Kuwait, Claire.
You didn't even care. Well,
He invaded.
then
He was literally
back.
in. He didn't. He wasn't bothering anyone.
The supply was not disrupted.
He was literally inside Kuwait.
Yeah, but Kuwait, there was some complicated reason, but the point is he wasn't bothering anyone.
He wasn't bothering anybody.
Except the Kuwaitis, but who cares about the Kuwaitis, right?
Well, this is the whole problem about the Middle East. It was a basket case of countries, and so
because of the Sykes-Picot Agreement. So what the French and the British did, they had a secret agreement to carve up the Middle East between themselves. Its terms were not discovered. Maybe if you watched Lawrence of Arabia, you might have some inkling of the shenanigans. And even then, okay, it's a bit complicated. Most people don't even understand their own history, much less the history of countries they wouldn't dream of visiting.
Do I think so? Let's just answer a couple of these things. Look, only because the West set him up to invade Kuwait. This is like claiming that we set Putin up to invade Ukraine. I just don't accept it. Do you think Iraq is better now without Saddam there?
Thank you.
In some ways, yes. In other ways, definitely not. It's an absolute mess. Like the aftermath of it, the second invasion. We're talking about the first invasion here. The kicking out of Saddam, which was done messily. They didn't finish the job, and then George Bush II went back and finished it messily in a very bad way. Obviously, America's made a lot of mistakes. That was a mistake in the handling of it the second time, but they should have finished it the first time. Like H.W. Bush should have finished the job properly. So yes, Iraq ended up a mess, but I'm saying, this is all like in hindsight, isn't it?
No, but you don't understand. The whole business model of the American empire is to bomb the crap out of Muslim countries and then traffic the Muslims to the West as cheap labor after they're, very happy to leave their countries with the crap bombed out of them. And this actually has an effect on the people in Europe and America and Australia, because that's a source of cheap labor. You steal their oil, you bomb their countries, and you bring them back as cheap labor. And every now and then, some of them go crazy and commit acts of terrorism. But the people who live in nice parts of the West, in compounds and whatever, they don't care. They don't care about the Christmas markets that might have trucks plowed into them. They don't care. They probably get their
I don't know what
Christmas shopping shipped to them delivered to them by Amazon.
I don't know what Frederica is saying nonsense to, but what you've just said is nonsense. Look, here Alphabet Cat says, we made assurances to Russia in 1991 not to expand NATO. Well, at the very most, this was some verbal agreement that nobody... Find a signed contract, Alphabet Cat. There isn't one. Okay? There isn't one. And even if even if it was some kind of verbal agreement, then, fool you for not getting it signed. Okay, and NATO is a defensive pact. People want people who. Yes, it is.
It's
It's
no longer
absurd.
defensive.
Of
It's
course
no
it is.
longer
It is
defensive.
utterly absurd Kremlin propaganda. The idea that a NATO country will invade Russia. This is just absurd on the face of it.
No,
Utter
no, no, this is a
absurdity.
plan of NATO. There was a time when people were actually saying, should Russia join NATO? And what do you think would happen if Russia joined NATO? It would go and attack China. It's so obvious. That's the whole plan. Everybody join NATO. Everybody attack. The rest of the
Russia.
world that ain't part of NATO, and then you conquer the world. But actually, interestingly, this is kind of how the Quranic bargain worked, because the whole idea of jihad was that you become an Islamic state and you go and fight your imperial wars. Islam does allow imperial wars that you extract, because it does talk about successful conquerors extracting jizya, and so what happened when after Muhammad died was one Islamic country invaded another and said, would you like to convert to Islam? If not, you can keep your religion, but you have to pay us jizya. And the conquered country said, no, we won't keep our religion, and we won't pay jizya. We'll become Muslim, and we can attack the next country along. And this was how Arabia was so swiftly Islamified, conquered by Islam. That was basically the what you call the modus operandi, the bargain, and it suited those Arabs to accept that bargain in that way.
Well, I want to be clear. I'm not an imperialist. I don't
I
believe
don't
in
see how
going.
you can deny your own identity. The British were known
Yes, the
for their
British had an
global
empire.
empire.
Obviously, they did, and it was glorious, and it benefited the world in many ways.
And
Yes,
now
I've
we're
gained.
America's sidekick.
It wasn't perfect. It was bloody. You know, lots of places had to be put down in the name of glorious civilization. But for the betterment of the world, at the end of the day, I'm not sorry for it. But today, after all of these successive wars, where we are today, and post World War II, when we end up with weapons of literal world mass destruction, and we are here, in the post World War II order, we've come to realise that we shouldn't all fight each other. There's no need for it. We should abide by the borders that have been set down. We should abide by those, stick to it, and those who don't should get severe bloody noses and be punished and made to realise that they can't get away with doing it again. And this is actually important to do, and it's why it's important that Russia gets a stiff bloody nose and, a couple of broken arms and a broken leg and whatever, and made to feel the deep cost of whatever they achieve in Ukraine, because anybody, and including Russia, and anybody watching needs to realise that you just can't go around in this post-World War II order anymore of invading your neighbours and conducting aggressive imperial wars, because it's not good for the world.
It's America that's been waging imperial wars. There was Korea, there was Vietnam, there was Afghanistan after Iraq and Libya. Come on, I mean, we just kind of have a sense of proportion. I used to swallow all the anti-Russian propaganda, just by watching a diet of James Bond movies, right? So I do see how you have unconsciously imbibed it as well. But let's just admit our victimhood. In that, in every age, in every country, there's stuff that our government wants us to believe in order to prompt us into doing the stuff they want us to do. And this is what we must
Do you
understand.
think
And in
the
every
better-
age, it changes.
Do you honestly? I know you are deeply infected with Duginist thinking,
No, I don't think
but
Dugan goes far enough. I think it's
well,
stupid.
there we
He
go.
doesn't go as far as I do.
There we go. I know you are deeply infected with Duginist thinking. However, and it's why I like to bring you on to have this debate, but do you honestly think that the alternative is better to just allow countries to invade their neighbours and just allow this to just go unchecked again, and the precedent that will set? Maybe you are looking forward to China invading Taiwan, for instance, because if they'd have looked over and seen Russia be able to just waltz in and take Ukraine and there'd be no international response to it, then we'd probably already be in the position of China having annexed Taiwan. But
Well,
instead,
you
they
part
saw that.
of China anyway, but I don't think the Chinese are stupid enough to waste a single the life of a Chinese soldier over invading Taiwan. If I were them, I think we'll just wait for the American empire to collapse, and we don't even have to do anything, because when it collapses, when nobody will buy its treasury bonds and shit like that anymore, it will just sink and drown in its own debt.
This is nonsense. The American empire isn't going anywhere. Here's your Messiah, Dugan. Here's what he says. The West treats Russia very harshly. The more they pressure us, the more they will have to pay for it. The West is the geographic Satan, the geographic Antichrist. The West should pay for everything. It would be best to settle it with Chinese, Tatars, Muslims, all this Eurasian nomadism. The West is a dead land. It will revive only when the Cossacks inhabit it. Tajiks, Kazakhs, they will bring life with them. They will bring the sense. This is just crazy hatred
It's just rhetoric.
of the European.
It's just rhetoric. I mean, fundamentally, Dugin is clinging to Christianity. He wants the Russian identity to be always Christian. And actually, the interesting thing about Russia is that it has the most Muslims in all the European countries of the world. It has the most Muslims. So it's also in a bit of a pickle. It also has a very low birth rates, and obviously the war is not helping, the survival of, white Russian men. So in the interests of white people, I would have thought you'd want to end this terrible European war, if you care about white people at all, whether they're Russian or Western European.
I would love to end it.
Our
would love the
leaders,
end of it.
even Trump wants to end it, but European leaders have been
Well,
complicit in sabotaging all those attempts. So it means that our governments are going to borrow more money to buy more arms to throw at Ukraine, and then we'll be complaining about how high taxes are and how high food prices are, and this is the legacy of our stupidity for refusing to understand what our leaders are up to, because we
Well-
accept all the propaganda from the BBC.
well, I can announce that tomorrow I've got Colin Liddell on the show to end out SJJMAS. That's at 10 p.m. UK time. So he'll be giving us the opposite perspective. And I know he has developed a sincere
He's invested in BlackRock. And
Oh,
he's
that
a
means-
neocon.
That means nothing. Anybody who's got a pension is in a BlackRock fund.
Well, so BlackRock, okay, yes, they do pension funds, and why are so many of our shops empty? Because they only have upward only rent reviews, or that they have some special rate for charity shops. They actually want to close down independent businesses and only allow these international conglomerates to to thrive, and once once they have a monopoly, but they're of course going to ask for prices that suit them rather than us, and that will be the end of the independent family business. And it will be worse because nobody's having children anymore, so you can't even run a family business because there are no families, right? Only incels.
Well, I'm in favour of family-run small businesses, but the truth about small businesses is that they're shit. They're generally badly run, and they fold due to being people not having much business sense, and so it's not necessarily quite easy to run a business. And so unless you are pro socialism and propping up businesses and restricting competition and all this kind of stuff that has a stranglehold upon an economy, then it can become quite difficult in the global economy that we have today for small businesses to succeed. It's not that starting a business
you want
is
to
not for
create a
everyone.
stable economy so that businesses can thrive. You want people not to be
Yes.
robbing each other and thieving from shops. All these things are necessary to create a stable economy where commerce thrives. And what you're doing now is making people give up and die in their suicide pod by
Yes,
saying.
but the example I'm trying to give is people just like have this idea that small businesses are being oppressed, and there's some extent to it that the governments could look at this in a better way, and but again we come down to offering help to small businesses, and any amount of help that we are offering comes down to some form of socialism that is anti-market, and these are
We have a mixed
difficult
economy
steps to
anyway, Stephen.
I get it. But the point I'm trying to make is that the small business of like running a fish and chip shop in your local town, or running a corner shop, or something like this is very different to the type of small business like where let's say I wanted to start making I don't know, shorts. Everybody knows I wear lots of shorts. I want to make shorts and sell them. Well, if this is the case, it becomes difficult because there is a global market of people already making this product that people have access to be able to purchase online at cheaper prices by larger companies that have already started doing this and have successful supply lines, and people want access to this stuff. And this means that for me to start a small business selling shorts is going to be very difficult, and it's harder for me to compete against all these things. Now, in order to make that easier for me, do we come in and impose like socialist principles, tariffs, protectionism, just to help me run my shitty business? No, I don't think you can do that. So people have to be very
What you
careful about
need
the
is
things that they wish for.
deregulation, right? Not more red tape. So apparently in America, when all these sort of multi-millionaires said, "Oh, well, my parents taught me the art of industry and enterprise, and I started selling lemonade, and mowing the lawn," and it's like, no, health and safety says you can't do it anymore. So and children can't work; they can't even deliver newspapers anymore, it seems. So you're stifling enterprise. You're making people think, oh, it's not worth us doing anything. We'll just stay indoors and moan about the Jews or whoever, which is, well, I think unhealthy. You
Well, I
might
do
be
too.
exceptional in that you have the energy to do stuff, but maybe the average person will be stifled, oppressed, and deadened by the red tape. And,
Well, I
you know
certainly agree
why
with
the government doesn't care
deregulation.
about small businesses? Because the small business can't get it together to bribe them. It's only big business like Amazon.
But people have like this innate hatred for like big business. Somebody in the chat said like BlackRock or whatever is satanic. Like this, they throw these words around. But yet, look, the other perspective is that something like Amazon is an amazing, honestly, it's an amazing service. It's like magic. If you could have told your grandparents that one day you'll be able to click a button on your phone and any product that you desire in the world will literally appear on your doorstep within 12 hours, they'd think that you'd gone crazy. So this is truly a magical company. Okay, you might not like to hear this. Their margin is only 11%. Actually, that 11% includes, I think that's across the board, and includes all their data centers and stuff where they make the real money. I think actually delivering you products to your home, which everybody likes and enjoys, is probably run near either at cost or near to a loss. But at the most, it's 11%. And when I found this out, right, when I found this out through investing and looking at Amazon's books, it gave me a new lease of appreciation for a company like Amazon, that they can do all this and they only take an 11% margin. It makes me really grateful in a way. Really grateful. Now when I'm purchasing something on Amazon, I'm like, this is actually a fair price. I'm actually grateful to you. Bollocks says living the dream. No, you're just infected with leftism. You're just infected by proletariat thinking. You just lots of us are on this side. We're so close to the left. It's like Sargon's old horseshoe theory. We really are infected with lots of these ideas where we just hate the man, hate the system, and we blame all these things. But really, what are they doing that's so bad? They're just taking 11%. Bezos is a multi-billionaire. 11% their margin is. Jeff Bezos is a billionaire in Amazon stock that has appreciated in value through him growing the company. So it's only a post case scenario. At the time, he will have been in massive debt and he will have risked it for the biscuit. Business people at the time, they undertake great risk, the risk of losing it all and take on debt and everything. And if it's successful, then only then later on, when their stock has appreciated massively based on decades of hard work, and it's now valued at $1 billion, do we then say that they're Satan? Sorry, go ahead, Claire. That was my globalist rant. Claire's clicking.
I can kind of take a back seat now that your chat, not mine, your chat has raised so many questions and have taken against your position, and it's your chat.
Come on, fight back. Come on, fight me.
No, I just think you just you read all your chat, and I think you should, acknowledge your chat and all the,
No. Come on. This is still your show. This is still your show. My chat. We've got to have a fight.
They are against you, and I'm glad.
Of course they are. Of course they are. People hate this, but I have to give people. I have to tell people what the hard truth, that none of the people on the dissident right are telling you this. They're just feeding you this nonsense that's not good for you.
Well, I tend to support commerce, which means that, family businesses will be, the most natural unit to begin a return to patriarchy, because obviously if you have a family, you can get your kids to do a lot of things for free, and incentivize them with being boss eventually, if they show industry and promise, etc. So this is how you can actually start a business that has creativity and industry, because otherwise, if you have to pay everyone for everything a fair wage, you probably won't be able to make your restaurant go. And this explains why all the corner shops are run by Asians, because they still bother having families, right? So they can get their sons and daughters and whoever to run the shop, while white people just they don't, right? They don't have family businesses because they don't have families. And this is something that should concern white people.
Is this where you give us your pitch for slavery?
No, that would be a separate matter, unless you want to talk about the welfare state and the welfare trap. But I'm saying, in order for white people to survive nicely, they have to reproduce within wedlock and parent their offspring properly, so that the next generation of the workforce can be produced and will be, sufficient and, good enough quality to sustain your society. Look, when you think, okay, I know you don't like the religious narrative, but when you think of Moses coming out of Egypt, Moses caused a problem for the Pharaoh, who obviously didn't want Moses and his slaves to go, because who had built his pyramids and shit. So that's why he wouldn't let them go, and that's why there is a song in America about letting his people go. But the management of labor is key to any national success, and this, I think, I don't think it's that controversial. Labor is a big part of the production cost of any good or service.
Isn't Malaysia better for joining the global economy, and isn't the quality of living improved for all? Yes. Some people are going to be left behind, but that's everywhere. People don't realise just what levels of poverty, despite all the ills of society that we still have. We have homeless people on the streets, blah, blah, blah. Most of them can't be helped anyway. I hate to break it to you, because they're mentally ill and drug addicts, 95% of them. Some of them are just in a bad place, I get it, but most of them can't be helped. But, apart from all these things and people struggling, which you're always going to have, and until we reach this Star Trek utopia, we have improved global poverty massively with the global economy. People have been lifted out of poverty to an extent that people don't appreciate. My grandma tells me stories of just, she had to leave school early and work for the family, go to work and bring home money to give to the family. And, she used to get $1 or $2 for Christmas, and that's it. And, and they were relatively well off as a working class family. Lots of people much poorer than that. And you go back another generation and it's even worse. And another generation, and it was literal poorhouses and workhouses, in the Victorian times.
Yeah, I'm certainly not saying that Britain or America hasn't done any good at all, but I'm saying the West could still be a force for political and moral leadership after they adopt secular Quranism with global characteristics. And this would be a nice way to show that it's a matter of interpretation. As I was trying to explain to you, Muslims don't really like my interpretation of their Quran, particularly when I try to tell them that Allah is Zionist. That makes their heads explode and makes them want to reject everything I say. But basically, if you want to go with the global narrative, you could say, well, if God created Jews, what did he mean for them to do? And the answer must be he meant to make an example out of them, which is actually not a very nice thing to have done to you, right? We don't want to be made an example of.
We don't want to be made an example of, but look, you have to save yourself in this world.
Yes, yes, and I'm saying sometimes by helping others, we help ourselves.
Yes.
And I'm saying if you have the rule of law, then you will prevent your corrupt and incompetent ruling classes from making up the rules as they go along. What might you find objectionable? I suggest a very high rate of income tax, gay marriage, transgenderism, stupid laws against speech called hate speech laws. There are all kinds of objectionable laws that we have now that just wasn't around a few decades ago, and they're going to make it more oppressive. And I'm saying, with America, which is basically an attempt to break away from the terrible absolute monarchies in Europe, because basically, once upon a time in Europe, all the kingdoms, well, all the countries in Europe were monarchies with an absolute monarch, meaning that the absolute monarch had the power to sign your death warrant, to throw you into jail without a fair trial. And this is basically what the founding fathers were objecting to. I mean, people said, "Oh, yes, it was taxes and whatnot," but I think the founding fathers said, "Well, we don't have to listen to what King George wants now, and he's mad anyway." Right, George III, he was known to be mad. So they just said, no, we're going to have a constitutional republic. We're going to, allow free speech. We won't have blasphemy laws. And this was what basically caused all these revolutions in Europe, like the French Revolution, like the Russian Revolution, which resulted in regicide. And eventually, in 1918 anyway, the most powerful kingdoms on the European continent became extinct. So in the year 1918, the German Kaiser, the Austrian Emperor, and the Tsar of Russia, they came to a sticky end. Two of them had to abdicate, and one of them had their entire family, including themselves, exterminated by the Red Guards. And that was the end of monarchy in Europe. Right now, we have a constitutional monarchy, and I'm saying it's confusing everyone, right? I mean, what is the point of
Parliament
being
is
king?
sovereign. Parliament is sovereign. It's just
Do we want Parliament to be sovereign? Do we want those people in
well, I
it
think
to
we do.
make up the rules as they go along? Do we trust them to do that?
Well, what's the alternative?
We want a constitutional republic like the Americans that says we have the First Amendment, and we can't, just let Parliament immediately,
Okay, so
in the
we could
future remove whatever rights we have today. They can literally do that. This is the reality of the doctrine of parliamentary supremacy, which means that Parliament can pass any law and repeal any law it likes, like make marriage gay. And that's what
in
they've done.
principle, I like your idea. However, the Americans got lucky with their constitution and the period that they went through because it was written up and brought about by well-intentioned men at the time, and came from a period in time and all got codified, etc., at a time where people were best intentioned. Now, if we were to do this and we allowed somebody to codify us a constitution, there would be all kinds of shit put in there that would not be beneficial for us at all. Like
What kind of shit do you fear will be put in this constitution?
like Muslims have a right not to experience Islamophobia or something like this.
No. Okay.
Yes, there'd be all kinds of liberal nonsense.
This is something that Muslims do not get. You know that the Gulf states are Gulf kingdoms, right? They are Gulf kingdoms. which means they have an absolute monarch. And actually, Saudis have complained to me that their Islamic scholars get thrown into prison and sometimes even get the death penalty. So
Yes, because they're a
it
basket
means
case
that
country.
the absolute monarch, who has the right to sign our death warrants and take away our property, this is what Magna Carta and all kinds of stuff was about, right? It was the barons who were saying to King John, don't you come and take away our stuff without even asking us. Don't you raise taxes on us without consulting Parliament. You give us a right to consulting us, to be consulted, and basically Charles I said, no, I'm your absolute monarch, right? So these are things that maybe the British do not understand, because right now the British still operate under a monarchy, a constitutional monarchy, which nobody quite understands. In fact, I'll even admit that I didn't really understand it when I was studying it. Because you get sold all this crap about, the British have this magic thing called an unwritten constitution.
Yes,
What
well,
a
it wasn't just
con!
made
What
up.
a con!
Look, we didn't just make it up like from a Christmas cracker. Okay,
Yes,
it's the
you
long.
did.
No, we didn't. It's the long end process of the old way of having the English monarch, who was effectively who had full autocratic power, and then the English Civil War and the deal between Parliament and the King to maintain a system. So it's the long product of the history, the traditions, and then the blood spilt of Englishmen. And here we are today. So we can just try to
The least you can
shoot
do is
holes
learn
in
from your
it.
history and not repeat the terrible errors of the past. But right now, there is a danger which Washington foresaw. George Washington foresaw that when you have a lot of war, the attractiveness of a strong man, with whom you want to trust with absolute power, because you think he needs absolute power to deal with his enemies, like throw them into prison without a fair trial. These will become irresistible, and the poor Americans will lose their wonderful
Well,
constitutional republic, because they don't even appreciate their First Amendment now, because of this
I'm not an
ugly thing called
authoritarian.
Christian nationalism.
Well, I'm not an authoritarian because I'm not from the Middle East. I'm not a woman who dreams of a strong man. I'm not Middle Eastern. I'm not African. And so I fundamentally am an Englishman who comes from this product of a long line of English freedom, where we fought for what we have today. And it's not perfect, but we made the best
It
of a
could
bad
be
job.
better.
It could be better. And the
It could be
people who
even
tried to make
better.
something better were the ones who went to America, and they did a damn good job at it. And they really did a damn good job, and they were men of well-meaning intention and of, good intellect, who drew up that American Constitution. I just don't think you can come up with something like that again today. And if you give the
We don't need to.
the power over to some despot to do it again, then God forbid, better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Well, I mean, the blueprint is already in the book you already own, Secular Coronism, delivered to you by Amazon, which I know you haven't read. It's
I
very
read some of
simple.
it. I did read some of it, but it's a bit thick for my. It's a bit.
It's under 100 pages long and big print.
It's a bit text heavy. Right, we're getting. I know you have a prior engagement, Claire.
Yes, I just want to thank the chat for kind of understanding.
Well, we've got
my
questions. We've got questions we have to rattle through first.
Yeah.
Ask Claire why the CCP represses Muslims.
because they were perceived, the Uyghurs were perceived to be a problem. The Hui, who are actually Han Chinese but just happen to be Muslim, are not a problem. But the Uyghurs have their own language, and there have been, there's been talk about secession and separatism. So understandably, the Chinese weren't going to put up with that. But it seems that the Uyghurs have settled down, and Xinjiang is a tourist destination.
Does not the CCP realise the benefits of the Quran?
Well, if Britain adopts it, if America adopts it, perhaps the Chinese will sit up and take notice.
We've got to do it
I mean,
first.
China has a share of Islamophobes, I'm afraid to say. Well, I used to be one myself, to be perfectly honest.
Joe obviously has nasty questions for you. What did you get for Christmas other than cigarettes and booze?
I got a very nice jacket, and I got
Was it leather?
oh no, it's an M&S thing, but I'm very happy with it. And
Okay.
I have yes, a headset, because that had conked out.
Very good. Quran 4:34. Wife beating is a matter of interpretation. Asks Joe.
I've done this so many times. So I've discussed with Vincent my idea of a ceremonial wife beating. So it basically says, if you have a recalcitrant wife and she's not doing what you hoped she would do as a good wife, first you admonish her. If she doesn't improve, you sleep apart from her, and finally, when she still doesn't improve, you beat her. Right? That's what it says. And I'm saying, yes, I'm not going to interpret this rule away. When it comes to the third stage, what you can do is you invite both sides of your family to this wife beating ceremony. So they come, they're offered refreshments, and they stand around, and then you tell the room why you're having such a problem with your wife. She doesn't clean the house, she doesn't look after the kids, she goes clubbing every night, whatever it is. And then you slap her on the wrist in front of everybody. You slap her on the wrist and say, if you don't improve, then it'll be the divorce courts. Final warning. So that's my proposed wife beating ceremony. So you don't even have to hurt her. You just give her a slap on the wrist. As long as everybody notices it and she doesn't improve, you can divorce her.
Well, of course, we don't condone any of that here in the UK, so we'll move swiftly on. What else? What does Claire think about the digital euro?
I wasn't even aware of it, so I'm afraid I can't tell you. I guess it's yeah. I'll have to read up on it, I should say.
Joe wants to know, when was the last time you had a job?
A long time ago. There you go.
Do you want to tell us what it was?
I was a secretary.
Oh, was this for what's his name? Oh no, you tried to get the job with what's his name? Oh, what is his name?
Well, I mean, I could type, right? So it's very useful, in the good old days when people wanted somebody to.
Who am I thinking of? Who wrote Hitler's War?
Oh, David
And Churchill's.
Irving.
Yeah,
David
you wanted
Irving.
to become. You were going to become his secretary, weren't you?
Yeah, and he said I couldn't have the job because I used to smoke a long time ago.
Based. Good. Yeah, he didn't want you stinking up the office.
Well, I said I had smoked for ages, and he said, no, even people who used to smoke but have given up, they are
They
contaminated.
still stink.
Something like that.
Very based. Well, maybe I like David Irving. Wizard of Oz is not calling in. We were going to get a call in, but he's too slow. So you have a show with everybody's favourite Duvid in 10 minutes, don't you, over on your channel, which is linked in the description.
Yes, I do. Thank you for mentioning it, Stephen.
So that's going on in 10 minutes. Link is in the description to Claire's channel. I think that's everything. As this is your show and you are the leader of the dissident right, would you like to address the proletariat on your way out?
Yes, I am recruiting for a keyboard army. I have been very disappointed at the way people just sort of liked my tweets when they should be retweeting, probably because they're too scared. And obviously, you know, these things you need all these messages amplified, and I guess people are scared and they won't, you know, they'll like because liking somebody's tweet means you well, nobody knows you liked it, right? Because Elon Musk has made sure that you know, nobody can look down your Twitter timeline and check out which tweets you like. So I'm just saying, it's just an ideological war. We can easily win all the arguments, except that people are too afraid to even make them. But fear not, I'll make them for you. I haven't lost an argument in years, in decades. So you can all get behind me and tweet and like and retweet and share my ideas and ask questions based on my, you know, narrative and say things like, you know, what else but Sharia would solve these problems? You know, that kind of thing. So that's what I hope.
Powerful, powerful
things will
stuff.
change.
Powerful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was Claire Khaw's stream. She is your leader. So submit and take heed. Her link is in the description. She will be talking to Duvid in 10 minutes. We actually had one of the bigger turnouts live here. We've got something like, you know, bigger turnouts of the show. So it went down well with the audience. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for asking the right questions and, you know, and covering new territory. I'm glad we, you know, didn't just repeat ourselves. And
we talk so much
with your questions.
We talk so much we have to keep it spicy for the audience, don't we? So
yes.
Okay. Good night, everybody, and Merry Christmas.
Talking hands, talking feet, ears that talk too. Talking flesh and eyes bear witness against you. Dissected birds fly home to Abraham. It's all written here in the noble Quran. The earth existed before there were stars. The moon emits light and was split into parts. Elephants turned into chewed grass by stones dropped from birds. These are a few of Quran's perfect words. Millennia-old men at the time of the flood. Your body was fashioned from one clot of blood. No evolution, but men turned to apes. In the Quran you will find no mistakes. When you tell me Allah will burn me, and it makes me sad, I simply remember these ludicrous things, and then I don't feel so bad. Viruses made just for our delectation. From smoke the earth volunteered its own formation. Worms in communities, milk from cows' bellies. Quranic facts with which science agrees. The Quran, it is perfect, Allah never fibs. Semen comes from between backbone and ribs. The night is a veil casting darkness beneath, and the dead can be raised up with slices of beef. Simple instructions to follow until each relative knows who will get what in a will. The moon follows the sun, which then sets in the mud. The earth is spread flat and stars fall as they should. When you tell me Allah will burn me, and it makes me sad, I simply remember these ludicrous things, and then I don't feel so bad. When you tell me Allah will burn me, and it makes me sad, I simply remember such ludicrous things as the Quran is easy to understand.